Most people chase success by doing more work, more effort, more goals. But what if the secret to true success isn't found in the noise, but in the silence within? What if the most powerful things successful people do each day aren't flashy or loud, but quiet, intentional, and unseen by the world? This isn't about hacks. It's about transformation. Each day begins as a blank canvas, yet most people rush to paint it with the colors of urgency, noise, and distraction. They awaken, check their phones, dive into tasks, and seek direction from the outside world. But those who walk the path of deep and lasting success follow a different ritual. Before engaging with the demand of the world, they first turn inward. This inner gaze is not a luxury, it is a necessity for those who seek to live in sync with intention. It is the first and most essential act of alignment. In this sacred space of morning quiet, the successful individual becomes an observer of their inner terrain. They ask themselves not what must be achieved, but who they are in this very moment. They notice subtle emotional shifts, the leftover anxiety from yesterday's conflict, the gentle whisper of excitement for something yet to happen. And in the seeing, there is power. Awareness creates choice. Without it, we are driven by unconscious forces, reacting to the world instead of responding from a grounded place. To gaze inward is to check the compass of the soul. One may find that their body is tense, that their thoughts are fragmented, or that they carry emotional residue from a dream. These discoveries, though small, hold profound implications for the day ahead. The person skips this step, may walk into a meeting with misplaced aggression, or approach a loved one with unintended coldness, but the person who begins with inner wars has the chance to name what is within, and in naming it, claim it as theirs to work with. Not to project outward. This practice is not about solving every internal issue before breakfast. Today I want to lead with calm. Today I choose to speak from authenticity. These intentions arise not from ambition, but from alignment. Moreover, this inward gaze reconnects the individual with their deeper purpose. It cuts through the noise of performance. There is also humility in this practice. It acknowledges that the self is not a fixed entity, but a living, shifting mystery. Each morning brings a new emotional weather, a new internal constellation. To assume that one is always the same is to blind oneself to growth or to warning. The inward gaze reveals where healing is still needed, where energy will be, where roadings may block the flow. Ultimately, the act of turning inward each morning is not about self-indulgence, it is about self-mastery. It is the foundation upon which all other actions are built, for without self-awareness, our efforts may be misdirected, our communication misunderstood, and our days shaped by forces we do not even recognize. But with it, we step into the day with our eyes open, not just to the world, but to ourselves. And that is where true success begins. Every individual carries within them a shadow, a hidden part of the self that contains all the qualities, impulses, and desires they have rejected, denied, or disowned. This shadow is not inherently evil or dangerous, but it can become so when ignored. It is made up of the aspects of ourselves we find unacceptable. The world teaches us early to push these things away, to pretend they do not exist. and to wear only our socially approved masks. But the truly successful, the deeply aware, know that avoiding the shadow gives it power. They do not run from it, they confront it. And they do so daily. This confrontation is not a battle. It is not about conquering or erasing the shadow. Rather, it is a meeting, a courageous encounter with the parts of the self that are uncomfortable, messy, and raw. Each day, life presents small mirrors, a harsh word that triggers us, a mistake that brings shame, a person we silently resent. The successful individual uses these moments not to judge others, but to inquire within. Why did this upset me so deeply? What part of me is being exposed? Facing the shadow means taking responsibility for what lives in the unconscious. It means seeing the envy behind the smile, the insecurity behind the confidence, the pride behind the humility. This is not a pleasant process. It requires honesty, humility, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. The successful do not waste energy pretending to be perfect. They use their energy to integrate the fractured parts of their psyche. This integration process transforms. When a person acknowledges their shadow, this daily act of confronting the shadow also protects them from sabotage. When a person is unaware of their darker impulses, those impulses find a way to emerge, often at the worst possible times. A repressed anger may explode in a meeting, distorted. Moreover, there is hidden gold within the shadow. Many of the qualities we repress are not actually harmful. They are powerful but misunderstood. A person who represses their anger may also repress their ability to set boundaries. A person who denies their ambition may also block their drive to succeed. By exploring the shadow, successful individuals recover parts of themselves that are essential to their full expression. They become more creative, more alive, more fearless. In the end, the shadow is not the enemy. It is the teacher, the one who hides from it, lives a devoided life, chasing external success while feeling empty inside. The one who embraces it becomes whole. And in this wholeness there is clarity, there is strength, and there is a kind of success that no title or trophy can match. It is a success born out of pretending to be light, that becoming to be light that shines even in darkness. Within each human being exists a collection of timeless energies, voices and roles, architects that shape how we see the world and how we act in it. These inner figures are not merely psychological ideas, they are deeply embedded patterns of behavior and perception that arise in dreams, myths. They do not wear a fixed identity, instead they honor the archetypes at play and learn to shift between them with wisdom and grace. There are times in life when the inner warrior must lead, a part of us that acts with courage, takes bold steps, defends boundaries, and confronts injustice. But the warrior alone cannot sustain a balanced life. Without reflection, they may become aggressive or rigid. Thus, in moments of deep thought or learning, the sage must step forward. This archetype represents the seeker of truth, the lover of wisdom, the one who listens before speaking. And then there are times when connection, compassion, and vulnerability are needed. Here the lover type becomes essential, bringing warmth, openness, and the courage to feel. Each of us carries many such figures. The creator, a person who only values the caregiver, may burn out from always placing others first. True success comes from recognizing all the archetypes within and knowing when to give each one a voice. This awareness allows the successful individual to adapt with authenticity. In a crisis, they can act decisively as the warrior. In negotiation, they can listen deeply like the sage. In moments of rest, they can embrace the innocence of the child or the creativity of the artist. Honoring the archetypes also brings a deep sense of inner harmony. It allows the self to be dynamic rather than rigid. Too often people feel trapped. We realize that success is not about projecting an image, but about there is also a spiritual aspect to this recognition. Archetypes are ancient. They appear in all cultures and across all time periods. They speak to something universal in the human experience. By becoming aware of the archetypes within, successful individuals tap into a deeper stream of human wisdom. They no longer act from ego alone, but from a lineage of human expression. They become storytellers, healers, leaders, logos of. In honoring the archetypes, we give ourselves permission to be complex. We reject the idea that we must be one thing forever. We embrace the fullness of our humanity, and in doing so we unlock a form of success that is not rigid or performative, but alive, evolving. Deeply rooted in the psyche, this is the art of living not from a single identity, but from the totality of the soul. In the pursuit of success, it is easy to become consumed by metrics, outcomes, and appearances. Society teaches us to equate productivity with value, to measure our worth by how much we accomplish or how visibly we succeed. But those who truly thrive, they understand that every act, no matter how small, is an opportunity to express something true, something that reflects the inner world in the outer one. To create with meaning is to move beyond the mechanical. It is not simply completing a task for the sake of efficiency or recognition. It's asking, why does this matter? What truth of mine is being reflected here? Whether writing an email, designing a product, building a business, or having a conversation, the successful person infuses their intentionality. They do not separate their values from their output. In the world, the work is not just work. It is an extension of the self. This approach transforms everything. A meeting is not just a routine obligation. It becomes a space for presence. There is a quiet fulfillment in this kind of work. A sense that the day was not merely survived, but lived. Creating with meaning also brings sustainability. Burnout does not come simply from working too much, it comes from working without soul. When actions are divorced from purpose, they become hollow. Successful person avoids this by reconnecting regularly with why they do what they do. They see their career not as a ladder, but as a canvas. They understand that creativity, every problem becomes an invitation to innovate, every interaction a chance to bring beauty or depth. There is also courage in creating with meaning. It requires vulnerability to show who you are through what you make, to take risks that reflect your true self rather than what the world expects. The successful do not hide behind trends or formulas, they draw from within. They are willing to say, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is the contribution I want to make. Even when their work is misunderstood or overlooked, they do not abandon their, because for them success is not merely about reception, it is about alignment. This kind of creation also inspires others. Meaning is magnetic. People are drawn to authenticity, to things made with care, clarity, and conviction. A leader who speaks from the heart earns trust. A product built with love attracts loyalty. A writer who shares real insight touches something timeless. When you create from your core, you awaken something in others they're all longing for. The impact becomes larger than the act itself. Ultimately, to create with meaning is to live as a bridge between the inner and outer worlds. It is to allow your invisible depths, your thoughts, values, stories, and dreams to take form. In the visible, they know that meaning is not a distraction from productivity, it is the very fuel of it. And in a world hungry for depths, they stand out, not because they are louder, but because they are at the close of each day, when the noise of the world fades and the light grows dim, there is a sacred moment, a threshold between action and rest, between the visible and the invisible. The truly successful do not rush through this moment, they treat it as a quiet ritual, a space to turn inward once more and reflect. This is not their routine or self-help habit, it's before sleep. They review the day, not to judge it, but to learn from it. They understand that tomorrow is shaped by the questions asked tonight. Reflection is the art of seeing with clarity. It is a way of pulling back the veil and examining the emotional, mental, and spiritual threads woven into the day's events. The successful individual does not simply replay what happened. They explore how they showed up. Where was I true to myself? Where did I act out of fear, pride, or habit? What was not insensitive is self. It is done with compassion, not condemnation. They know that without reflection, even the best intentions can slowly drift off course. Through this nightly practice, they begin to detect patterns. Perhaps they notice recurring frustrations with certain people, or when gathered over time, they form a map of the inner landscape, revealing what needs attention and where energy must be redirected. Reflection also offers the gift of closure. Life moves quickly, and without conscious pause, experiences pile up unresolved. Conversations linger, emotions remain stuck, mistakes hang in the background, whispering quietly but persistently. The successful individual knows the cost of carrying unresolved weight into the next day, and so they make space each night to acknowledge what needs forgiveness, whether it is forgiving ourselves for what's. In doing so, they make peace with the day and create a clean emotional slate for the one to come. Beyond correction and closure, evening reflection nurtures gratitude. In the quiet, the successful do not focus only on what went wrong. They also recognize what went well: a kind word, a task completed, a moment of courage. They do not take these things for granted. Gratitude is not forced, it is felt deeply, arising from the understanding that life is fleeting and every good moment is a treasure. This gratitude is grounding. It softens the sharp edges of ambition and roots success in appreciation rather than pressure. Perhaps most importantly, the act of reflection reconnects them to their humanity. It reminds them that they are not machines to optimize, but beings to understand. In the stillness before sleep, stripped of titles, roles, and tasks, they return to themselves. This is where priorities realign, The next day is entered not with random momentum, but with renewed intention. This nightly ritual is subtle but powerful. It does not take hours. Even 10 minutes of quiet presence can shift an entire trajectory. Over time it becomes a wellspring of wisdom, a compass that keeps the successful aligned with their deeper truths. Because while success may begin with a vision, it is sustained by reflection, by the simple, brave act of looking back in order to move forward with awareness of integrity and peace. Amid the demands of modern life, where performance is constant and validation is fleeting, the truly successful cultivate a rare and radical practice, solitude. Not isolation, not loneliness, but conscious solitude. A deliberate stepping back from the external world to return to the inner one. They know that silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of depth. In solitude, the noise of expectation fades, and the dawn of this daily retreat into stillness is not a withdrawal from life, but a sacred re-entry into it. It is here that clarity is born, creativity is restored, and the self is remembered. Those who live with purpose do not fear being alone with their thoughts. They seek it because they know that the constant motion of life can blur the edges of awareness. Without solitude, it becomes easy to be swept up in the currents of others' opinions, responsibilities, and desires. One begins to perform rather than live. What part of me have I abandoned? What am I avoiding through busyness? In this quiet space, time stretches. A walk without a phone, a few moments of sitting under the sky or writing in a journal by candlelight. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. They are the spaces where intuition awakens and unseen truths rise to the surface. The successful individual understands that solutions to their greatest challenges rarely arrive in the midst of noise. They come in stillness, often when least expected, like whispers in a forest. But to hear them, one must slow down, soften, and listen. Solitude also becomes the ground for true decision-making. In the crowd, trust that their inner world is not empty, but wise. Furthermore, solitude nourishes creativity. The mind, when allowed to rest and wander, makes unexpected connections. New ideas are born not from forcing thought, but from allowing space. The successful individual does not rely solely on output. They cultivate input. They allow inspiration to arise naturally through being present with nature, art, silence, or even boredom. In solitude, the imagination is given permission to breathe. It is not surprising that history's greatest thinkers, artists, and leaders all had periods of solitude woven into their lives. This daily act of withdrawal also cultivates emotional resilience. In the quiet, one can feel without interruption. Grief, joy, fear, longing, all are allowed to surface and move through. Without solitude, emotions become stagnant or misdirected. With it, they become teachers. The successful individual knows that strength is not in suppressing feeling, but in allowing it to flow and reveal it. Finally, solitude anchors the self. In a world that constantly tells us who we should be, solitude helps us remember who we are. It is the mirror that reflects the soul without destruction. The person who practices solitude each day emerges not disconnected from life, but more deeply connected to it. With greater presence, patience, and perspective, Their actions become less reactive and more deliberate. Relationships deepen, their leadership becomes grounded in authenticity. Solitude, then, is not escape, it is return. It is the home we carry within us, the space where wisdom waits and where true success, silent, steady, and luminous, begins to take root.